Zach is already banned out, but double support ban from the Tigers. Looking like they're trying to fish for a mismatch. You look at these two and you're like, first pick Rakan is looking possible with all these bans. And also, the value of Kalista starts to jump up. So, Kalista already going to be banned out. Let's see what slips through, because suddenly you know something's coming through.
Yeah, suddenly you're looking at that jungle pool and you're thinking Elise is certainly going to be an option, but Rek'Sai's been doing fantastic things. Have seen sort of these junglers fall out of this ban list just because there's so many, and Alistar's going to be banned. That's a lot of supports.
These are all champions you can lane against Rakan, so it does feel like a first pick Caitlyn or Rakan draft is likely to come through, but that leaves open Galio, that leaves open a lot of other picks. They will not be getting Caitlyn. Do you still go for Galio and then admit defeat when it comes to support matches, or do you just reach for Rakan? It felt like it was setting up for this Atlas, and they're at least going to consider it.
Well, they are going to lock it in. So Galio being thrown over to Kuro, who has had some fantastic performances on it so far, fits his wheelhouse as well. I would have thought that Lava would have wanted to jump onto that just because it is such a good facilitating pick, and that has been his role thus far. But, whew, a little bit crazy to start things off here, Papa Smithy, as Elise is being considered.
You think about it and you're like, okay, Galio got nerfed on 7-13. Teams are starting to prioritize it a bit less.
True.
That part is there. And then for the jungle, you're like, what about Elise? But Rek'Sai has commonly been the draft into Elise and is also available. So this is Rox really fishing for the strongest initiating support and ending up on Rakan. So I can understand it, but I want to see it in practice because it feels like we've seen amazing Rakan games. And certainly, if you get lane counterpicked, if you have, like, say, Caitlyn into your Ashe and you really struggle as the AD carry, Rakan doesn't provide a lot in lane. But given that a lot has been banned out here already, the premium Rakan delivers on has been seen in fits and spurts. I want to see it from Key once again.
Well, Lava's considering a Corki pick, and are we just going to get the Zarya pick away here as well, given the fact that Elise and Galio have had so much priority on the side of Afreeca? I would have thought Kramer would want to snap that one up. However, Tigers do have an opportunity to finish off their bottom lane here if they would like to. And with Caitlyn Kalista gone, I mean, it feels like the next rung of picks, unless you want to go back to something like the Varus Ashe.
Surprisingly, they're being a bit slower, so maybe they're leaving open the potential to having an AD carry banned away and just taking a Twitch or something lower priority. If it was to be Zarya Rakan, this would be the time to take it, but they focus on mid lane, getting Lava one of the pressure mid laners, and then if you didn't take Rek'Sai here, it'd be banned. So you had to take the Rek'Sai in this round. The end cost is going to be Songyun's AD carry, which, if you follow the logic, it's going to be a bit of a downer, given they've built around Songyun. But there's so many AD carries, Tristana, Twitch, you see a Kog'Maw ban, that something will come through for Songyun.
Yeah, a lot of things have snuck in. Of course, seeing the Jinx being played by the LMS in Rift Rivals as well was a lot of fun to see, as the Rumble is going to be banned. Myron saying, damn it, why did we hover it? It is going to be taken away. And of course it is, because Myron is ridiculously good. Having a sneak peek at his solo queue, you'd probably want to be taking that one away.
I wonder what he'll be playing. Playing a lot of Kennen in solo queue that you're kind of alluding there to Atlas, which is a possibility when it comes to a pressure lane. I could also see him just jumping on top lane Galio that hasn't been a common pick, but I feel like might be considered by a team like Afreeca, who really do like to mix things up and play different champions top lane, with the introduction of Abyssal Mask as a much more natural build path, with building out a Catalyst. I think there's more options for top lane Galio in terms of build path, and even mid lane that make him interesting, but we'll reserve our judgment. More AD carry bans come through, so Tristana is available, the Jinx, which is not a popular pick in Korea, is available, and you can just go super standard with Ashe or Varus, who are also available.
And we'll see whether Tusin's going to lock away his support pick here as well, which may help the Tigers decide on what they want to take into that matchup. See whether it is going to be something like a hyper carry, which is the LPL flavor that you'd throw in. Kassadin is being considered here for Kuro, and he's going to take that one into the Corki that we did see to do fantastic things for the majority of the game in our Samsung versus Ever8 series.
It's actually a surprisingly good laning matchup. Ever since the damage was changed to 80-20 in terms of magic damage and physical, most champions kind of cower in fear because you really do lose out on trades even more comfortably. But with the magic damage shield on the Q, going Death by a Touch Q, Max really does get you through lane, and you can actually match CS with a Corki, which is already impressive. You take Teleport, you end up going 1-3-1. Ever8 were winning until they weren't really against Samsung, so that was a mismanagement on a macro sense rather than the matchup, which is good for Kassadin, and Kuro is our premier Kassadin player, at least in terms of game time this season.
Yeah, well, you were exactly right with the Tristana, Papa Smithy. That is going to be locked in here for Songyun. We've got the Tristana-Rakan combo, which sounds like a pretty brutal level 3 if you want to go for that all-in engage. Reminds me of the old Tristana-Cow combo, which is very exciting. But it is going to be the J4 switched over to here for Linderung, as Tusin's considering the Galio support.
It's true. I mean, it could be Camille support that Tusin has played as well, you should remember.
Hey, that's true. That's true. I apologize.
Waiting to see what they decide on. Looking increasing like it will be the Galio support, so we kind of had that feel that it wouldn't be a mid lane Galio. Support was not the first one I would have considered, but it is a pushing lane into the Rakan, and because you can kind of lane anything against Rakan and everyone's scaling, you do get kind of a free Galio where if you take a side lane turret, put Cassidy in a side lane with a Rod of Ages, and then a mid lane Galio to have the hero's entrance to roam, there is actually really good mid-game options if Afreeca don't get super pushed in, which remember, they do have Cassidy. There is still the potential for some downside, but also, you like what their draft can do if they hit the mid-game ahead or better.
Yeah, and if Spirit's going to be doing his Spirit things as well, roaming around after level 6 on the bottom side of the map, Freecs can collapse onto that Elise relatively effectively. I like what they've put together. It feels very Afreeca-esque in style.
And they have all those lane counter picks. Renekton beats Jarvan in lane. Corki does go competitive with Cassidy, but Cassidy does better than most Cassidy lanes. So already you're having a bit of PTSD about the future. So there's a lot of good things on the side of the Afreeca Freecs. Rocks Tigers, though, they have strong engage. Their bot lane does very well against Xayah, with the ability for Tristana to walk up and win auto-attack trades. This will be a really interesting game, and it feels like teams have been informed a lot by the break, both in terms of watching other regions and just sitting back and enjoying all the carnage at Rift Rivals, because this is definitely a very Rift Rivals-inspired draft.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing whether it's going to work out, whether the Rocks Tigers are going to continue their good form, or whether Afreeca Freecs are going to come back. Let's do it. Let's hop into the Rift. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, onto the Rift for game number 1. Week 6. Can you believe it's gone by so quickly, Papa Smithy?
I can. I can't believe you talked over the fans' cheers.
Oh, no.
Not used to it. Get out of the studio for 1 week, and you forget about the fans.
I'm so sorry, guys.
You remembered the OGN Legion, though, and the OGN Legion should take note that Songwon, kind of one of those junglers who, in the middle of the pack, you don't really hear anyone hyping Songwon. Felt like Mighty Bear was the better jungler for the Rocks Tigers by the end of spring. You'll notice that he's actually on a 6-game win streak. Hasn't been starting all series, but has been winning recently. Went from 1-4 to 7-4, and it's with a majority of his champion pool being just all over the place. He's trying different things. He's putting together his old picks like the Elise and also being able to play the meta. So Songwon, one of these young players, started on the Afreeca Freecs as a duo with Linderung, playing with Linderung again on the Rocks Tigers, and finally coming into form and finding himself as a pro gamer.
Yeah, we're going to see whether it's going to be once again the Linderung-Songwon combination as well, given the fact that Jarvan and Rek'Sai work pretty well as the knock-up duo.
I mean, Elise and
Renekton
also.
Classic.
It's definitely the you die instantly if you're the only jungler in the top side, because 2v1s on both sides are possible. This is a 3v2, though, on screen.
Yeah, Rocks are actually going to start off the Raptor camp here, as they just don't know which team to get angry at. Lava's going to steal one away. That's a bit rude. It is going to be the full camp steal, apart from that one popcorn chicken. Songwon is going to be able to pick up.
Does deny fast level 2. It also means Rek'Sai's pathing is going to be heavily delayed. Both Elise and Rek'Sai have creative pathing opportunities, but even more so for the side of Rek'Sai, so this is pretty significant. Does relieve pressure from Marin in the top side, which honestly is quite often the level 1 plan for Afreeca Freecs.
Generally how that one works, but Rocks were able to get the inside track here as the bottom lane moved down the river, so Afreeca Freecs put back a little bit in that department as well, but probably worth to slow down that jungle like you were talking about.
Galio's support's going to help with the level 2 push, because we'll just use Q on the minion wave, and even after the nerfs, will be very useful in terms of supports able to push, and pushing is one thing that Rakan cannot do. 800 dash is an initiation, sure, but pushing, absolutely not.
Yep, not exactly in his wheelhouse, which is probably good, considering his strength in the other regard. Wouldn't want to see what would happen if he had wave clear as well as ridiculous amounts of CC and dashy dash potential.
I want to talk about Marin a little bit, because a couple of weeks ago we saw that his KDA was one of the lowest in the top lane. He's rescued it a little bit, but it's still not high, around 2.5, which is towards the bottom of the mid laners. What the stats are that really do show you that Marin is having a better season than people appreciate is that right now, he is #1 for CSD at 10. So he dies a lot. He was #1 for deaths earlier in the season. He's fallen away. He's about 10 by 73 deaths in 25 games. But he has a massive CSD, so he's very much crushing lane and then getting ganked, which is kind of the Rumble way, as we know for him, and the Marin way as well. He also is #2 in the league of any role at XP difference at 10. So he's trying to deny. He's growing leads and he's drawing pressure. So he's basically being singed as a player because he's basically forcing every enemy jungler to come top, and sometimes his jungler comes too.
Yeah, that's just going to be the easy wombo there as, Linderung is able to get out. Repel a little bit late. And Spirit not going to be able to follow.
Yeah, Spirit couldn't get quite onto Linderung at max range there. Not sure about the repel interaction. Usually we see those complete, but Linderung lives.
Yeah, Spirit's actually moving down here, but thankfully vision available for the Rocks Tigers, and Linderung just going to walk his way out. That was so close to being a success. And of course, Linderung is going to miss a couple of CSs. There's the taunt that comes out. Key going to get the knock up onto Kramer. Decent damage coming in as Tucson. Yeah, that one's going to explode. It's going to do a bit of damage. Half health. Not too bad.
Both AD carries were turned on by CC, so neither of them were actually putting out massive damage to each other. Linderung living in that spot does mean that he only ends up losing about a minion wave and does come back with a cloth armor. So, in general, best case scenario there for the side of Linderung. And Marin, predictably, we know how he goes. Got to get an early cull. Always looking for those 1v1 leads. So honestly, to me, one of the reasons he goes culls is to get in the head of the enemy top laner and say, well, you better all in me, otherwise I'm going to cash in on this investment banking purchase. Another mind game by the master of them in Marin.
Yeah, he's got a solo kill sitting in his bag, just waiting to go off. See whether he does get it. As there's the grand entrance. Actually, a lot of damage going down onto Kramer. As there's the rocket jump. They want this kill. Exhaust coming in. The heal baited out immediately. It's going to be a trade of summoner spells, but not a lot of defense left here for the Afreeca Freecs on the bottom side.
Yeah, second AD carry we see mixing around with the Tristana. Does win auto attack trades against both Kalista and Rakan, two of the premier AD carries in this current meta with Caitlyn perma banned. Able to get lane pressure and bot side as well, as Lace is looking for a wraparound.
Yep, if at first you don't succeed, Papa Smithy, you camp top.
Is that how the song goes?
Yeah, that's the cliche. As far as I know, Marin's going to curve his way around. We'll see whether they can cull the meek little Linderung. As there it is. He's not going to be able to do it again. He doesn't have a flash, and that's going to be Marin picking up first blood. So that's going to be the kill and the cull, Papa Smithy. The double trouble on the top side of the map.
I mean, it's another type of double trouble in that he used his teleport to get back the first time. He's going to have to walk up. So they will lose significant minions at the top. Rek'Sai will come there and at least pick up the experience. It's the interrupt, which is actually pretty big for the side of Linderung, as the back time will be a bit more off by Marin. But definitely a nice repeat gank from Spirit, who is on point at getting the team captain ahead.
Yep, doing nicely so far. 600 gold is going to be the result as the Afreeca Freecs move ahead by just a little bit. We checked into the mid lane momentarily. It's a 12 CS lead for Lava, but you can imagine the early levels are probably going to be a difficult time, as now Kuro is making his way back in, and the Catalyst is completed. He's feeling like he can Rift Rock, walk around and get things done.
The item build against a Kassadin for a Corki is an interesting one to me. You can go Hex Drinker and it negates Burst, but Burst patterns have never really been the way Kassadin kills you. It's more about the chase, so I'm starting to wonder if maybe Lifesteal is the way to deal with a Kassadin, because the death by a touch Qmax does mean you lose trades, but you still auto-attack a lot safer, and generally get a lot of auto-attacks off. So I wonder if there will be an adjustment and itemization to get through what will increasingly be a really tough lane for the Corki.
You can see now it's actually Kuro making his way out of said lane. Not actually spotted by a lot of vision, as Afreeca does own most of it in the river. Song1, he wants to take this Bramble back and should be able to do so unhindered with all of the vision that Rocks have on the top side. Kuro will have another Rift Walk. You have to be careful there, Lava. But he is, so everything is going to be fine.
Red buff steal. Gonna be red buff trades, as both teams are playing around the vision, like you mentioned, Atlas. So not really too much takeaway from that particular passage. Feels like Afreeca have already kind of done the business on the top side by getting the gank off. Marin still has flash and the Dominus available, so for now, doesn't really need the sort of coverage that he had earlier in the game.
In fact, he just has one ward. which isn't going to save him if they are going to be able to enter from his jungle. However, he's doing the Marin thing where he's saying, well, I'm drawing pressure, even if I do die to a gank.
Which he frequently does, to be clear.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's a big thing. Like, at the end of the day, like, the deaths look bad, but being able to be #1 at CST in the league of any role, and also #2 in XP difference at 10, lets you know that in lane, he is dominating to the point where people feel forced to camp.
He's a bully.
He's a bully, exactly. But bullies, sure, you can feel cathartic about taking them down, but remember what that means for Kuro and Kramer. It means that very often the jungler is going to be top trying to punish this overextending machine in Marin. And if that means Cassidy gets a free laning phase, if that means Kramer, who has been the big benefactor on champions like Xayah and Kalista, are the ones to draw the benefit, Marin will be there with teleports. He's one of the best teleport users in the history of League of Legends. So it's one of those things where he kind of feels like it's a necessary evil, just like in spring season, where he would blind pick Maokai every game and still be fine.
Yeah. Well, he's actually going to have that lane to himself for a moment. Just swinging that big weapon around and clearing out the minions. It's going to be a 22 CS lead as a result. We'll almost have that Black Cleaver, one of the Renekton players that likes to go towards that first instead of getting the Tiamat early on. The extra wave clear as Songwan is going to turn up, but that's not going to be a blue buff going over to him. Will be the steal for the Afreeca Freecs as well. That extra vision that Marin was able to get by all of that pressure that he did have means that they're able to capitalize once again. So Afreeca just extending that lead to about 1,000 now at 9.5 minutes. Small
summon a note. You'll notice that Lava, much like what we saw at Rift Rivals and also Pawn early in the season, as bot lane up, Tucson will have his back interrupted, has gone for the teleport Corki. It means he doesn't have cleanse, which could be a big factor when you have both Elise and Galio on the Rift.
It's an odd one. Of course, Corki does play a lot more differently when he has exhaust as well. You can be much more aggressive, but Lava's opted out of that, wanting to try and match Kuro.
It's basically one of those things where if the matchup wasn't as strong for Kassan as it was, you'd go cleanse and just say, I'm just going to auto-attack you in your face the whole laning phase and keep you down, and I have cleanse to not get ganked. The teleport to me is almost saying, I'm going to try and match you in the side lane, but I kind of put up my hands and put up the white flag when it comes to actually being able to hold down the item scaling. So while it will give them strategic options in the late game to try and answer the 1-3-1, it does mean that Lava can't harass or overextend because he doesn't have the insurance against the Elise.
Yeah. Right now just playing defensively. You can see top side of the map still belongs to Afreeca Freecs in that river. So we'll have to be quite careful.
Lane swap being enacted by Rox, trying to kind of hold down the Renekton, who's been winning in top side. You see the fast push coming by Afreeca in the bot side. This is where the game gets interesting. The moment that side lane turrets go down, I believe Afreeca have a massive lead because they can just put Xayah, Galio in the mid lane and try to have a Kassan with Rod of Ages pick up stacks in the side lane. And guess what? He even has the hero's entrance to relieve pressure. Support Galio in the mid lane gives you so many options because he responds to side lanes faster than even a Moby Boots Thresh can.
Yeah. And now you've got Kramer moving towards the top side of the map. Afreeca unable to grab the turret on this push, but it should go down pretty quickly.
A lot faster than the Rox Tiger will.
Yeah, and that's actually going to be a teleport coming straight back towards the top side of the map.
They're contesting.
Yeah, and we'll see whether that's Kuro turning up as well. No, it's not. He's just going to be frustrating Songwan, but Inko's key, and they're going to see whether they can actually bully this Cassidy away. 4 members of Rox actually moving down, but they're getting flanked as Rocket Jump does get Sungyun in. They might be able to grab this Rift Herald, but what are they going to lose for it now? As Songwan is going to be able to pick that one up and just try and tunnel his way out. Now Lava getting collapsed on, and everyone on Afreeca just wants to pick this one up. It's looking like kill number 2, and Kuro wants to grab it. It's going to be Spirit that gets it, but at least the Cassidy gets an assist.
And Lava, being new to competitive play, is the one predictably who makes the positioning mistake. Cannot be that far pushed up when the rest of his team is in no position to relieve pressure from him. So it just ends up being a kill for Rift Herald, although now...
Yep. That's going to be the heroic entrance, but my god, Marin does a lot of damage. That's going to be Kramer contributing his own as well, as now Afreeca putting the pressure on everywhere, and that was a mistake. Rox thought that they could take it, but that Crocodile was gigantic.
That's what an 11-minute Black Cleaver looks like. Atlas instant burst onto the Tristana after the wombo of the hero's entrance. They'll keep pushing. Support Galio not really affected by the nurse that did shut down some of the laning Galio play, and Afreeca rotating super smartly in the early game.
Yeah. Of course, it was more towards his wave clear and things like that that the nurse were hit towards. So things like the Winds of War and stuff like that that were touched. So Not a worry at all. See how Tucson's going to continue playing this one out. Already has that Ruby Sightstone done. We're looking for a face of the mountain by the looks of things.
And this is where Afreeca's comp gets stronger. We'll talk about that more in a second. Is just watch how fast Tristana dies. Now, Sungyun saw something. He jumped in, so his jump was on cooldown. But the amount of instant burst during the 3 seconds of knock-up and stun duration of the Ruthless Predator surprised Sungyun, who had flash up but had no time to use it. A lot of pressure coming on, but this is the part I talked about. Galio comes in mid, helps the Xayah wave clear. When Hero's Entrance is available, can really help on the side lanes, and you got Kassadin pushing in bot, and a Renekton with his Cull cashed in on the top. When it comes to the amount of immediate pressure being caused by the laners, it doesn't matter how many control wards you have, there's basically time bombs on every side of the map.
Yeah, Marin now has his Ninja Tabi completed and another couple of longswords, so continuing that damage coming in. We'll see whether that is going to be the Tiamat into something else, whether it's going to be the Titanic Hydra, which is normal, or whether he's going to go full Marin and get a Ravenous Hydra, which would be super awesome.
But we don't want to see the Afreeca Freecs go full Everate, who were kind of in a similar scenario against Samsung in the first game yesterday. Kuro face check somewhat.
Yeah, Lava's going to do a lot of burst damage, but nice rift walk gets Kuro out of there. Red buff doesn't slow him for too long. His Spirit's going to turn up as well, so Kuro actually looking like he didn't really care about that at all. Refillable potion going to help get that health bar back up.
The main problem for Everate with a similar comp to what Afreeca Freecs were running was inability to play the side lane. Something Afreeca's much better at, Marin was, again, one of these players always great at teleport and managing minion waves. As long as Afreeca Freecs keep up what they're doing and also have the minion waves, pushing for them, push up vision, take all the steps that we know teams should really follow when they're in a 1-3-1 comp, and they even have Galio if they end up making a face-checking mistake, then it should be a lot more solid game plan when it comes to actually closing out what is a good lead for them earlier. It's 5,000 gold at 15 minutes.
Yeah, and it's feeling like an Afreeca game one, Papa Smithy. I feel like we've come back to the LCK and everything's at its normalcy. It's not like game one in the MVP series where they utilized LPL strategies and it worked somehow. That was very confusing, but then everything came back around again, and we're back in the LCK and things are fine. It's all okay. There's the Rift Herald. He's going to charge towards the top side as Linderong wants to try and capitalize on it. They want to get their first tower of the game for the Rocks Tigers and try and stymie what is a decent lead that Afreeca have set up for themselves.
In hindsight, we could have really done with Afreeca Freecs at Ref Rivals.
Oh, yeah.
They're really good at game one.
Yeah, the best of ones is exactly what we needed them for. And we needed Jin Air so that they could fly everyone there, and that would have been great. And we needed BDD. So Longzhu had to come through. As Spirit is just going to repel. Can he actually? No, he couldn't. Couldn't get to the blast cone. But everyone's going to back away because Kramer is making his way around. Kuro as well. That Rift Walk stacked.
Trying to play a pick comp against the Galio is always a bit of a headache, though, so they showed instant respect when they realized the burst couldn't come through. Couple of tools used. Quickness is down, of course.
Slightly unfortunate. He hasn't really been able to find his way in here in the mid-game. Okay, not going to get the knock up there on the grand entrance either, so Kramer continues his assault on this turret. He's doing decent damage to it as well. Essence Reaver complete, now just going towards that Zeal. See whether it's going to be the rapid fire cannon, which most of these Zayas go towards, but could be a cheeky static shiv for some extra weight.
The rapid fire cannon, like you say, is the standard, but there is always the individual's tilt when it comes to what they prefer to buy as the Zeal item completion.
I wouldn't mind the static shiv in this composition, just because, you know, Kassadin struggles to clear out a wave without putting his face in it. Things like that.
Xayah doesn't really struggle to clear out a wave, kind of regardless of which way you go.
The old Blade Callerino, pretty good at that.
Marin back to being a jerk.
Yep, he's a big bully. That is his playstyle. And he's such a smiley, lovely guy in real life, but on Summoner's Rift, guy's a jerk. Really is. Fantastic jerk to watch, though. He's going to continue to play aggressively towards the bottom side of the map while the Afreeca Freecs push this outer turret in the mid lane.
Afreeca can do whatever they want. They have a winning bot lane, they have Kassadin scale in the side lane, and winning trades against Lava. They take the mid lane turret while they have globals. They just need to keep on pushing up vision. And really the only gap in their playbook is getting 5 control wards on the map, and you have to feel like in a couple of recalls time they'll be able to do that. Because every time Rocks Tigers walks up to an enemy control ward, they have to start to respect the what if of the Wombo combo that can come through.
Yeah, and look at all of the vision that has been just ripped away from the top side of the map. Still 2 minutes away from the Baron spawning, and already Afreeca making sure the Tigers have absolutely no idea even where that pit is. They haven't seen it for ages, Papa Smithy. Is there even a river left on the map? They don't know. Haven't had vision of that one for quite some time. Although that Scryer's Bloom may help from Key. He's doing his best to clear things out.
Yeah, the happiest thing for Rox is that this phase of the game is with Baron not available. If the Baron was available, this was 5 minutes in the future. A 20-minute Baron like we saw on Spawn yesterday could have been a possibility. So you feel better that at least you can lose vision. You can lose forward vision when there's nothing to actually profit the Afreeca Freecs on that side of the map for now. But that will change in a minute and a half.
Yeah. Speaking of things that have changed, the level gap is pretty ridiculous from Marin this stage of the game.
I mean, it's
level 13 to 11.
It is 75 CS also.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't got to that bit yet. The bad news story was going to continue, unfortunately, for Rox Tigers fans, but we'll still have the flag and drag for Linderung. His team fight presence will still be there, but that is me being very optimistic. Rox Tigers will need some time to try and scale into this one. Sangi needs to draw those beads pretty effectively. They want to try and win a late game fight.
This is a really good draft on red side with the flex of the Galio especially.
Yeah.
We were kind of thinking about it. I was thinking more of a top lane flex, but the way it's worked out, and Tusen's flexibility to play Camille support, now Galio support.
He's like what Max should be this season.
Weird thing to think about, given his struggles in spring season. It was Kramer and Tusen's inability to win any 2v2s, really, that kind of held them down. But Kramer has been on a massive tear in summer season especially, where his KDA was always high, but had those queries about does he do enough damage in fights. This season he's doing both, so that's pretty cool if you're an Afreeca Freecs fan.
And these bottom lanes are actually both the redemption stories for the LCK moving into summer. Both Kramer and Sangyun having great seasons, but when they're against each other, you can't both have a good game. So far, it has been Kramer that's been able to capitalize based on the rest of his team doing really well.
That's kind of the weird thing for Rox, is they probably would have preferred to have played competitive matches last week when they were in form, when they beat KT with their bot lane carrying against Deft and Marta. They were probably ready to go for more matches, and they were red hot and then had to cool with the week off, whereas on their side of Afreeca Freecs, the drafting stuff that you're seeing here is really influenced by watching other regions and spending a lot of time to actually curate a draft and actually use the hypothetical situations to get ahead. So I feel like this kind of Afreeca Freecs real in to have an impressive performance where they've grasped it with both hands. And the gold lead is only growing because what can Rox do when they're dealing with double teleport, a Renekton that straight up beats Jarvan, and just no vision, because the moment you contest vision, that roaming Galio will come and answer the call.
Yeah, and I really love that it is a draft adaptation, but they're not going away from what is definitely the Afreeca Freecs flavor at the same time. You've got the Zarya for Kramer, which is exactly what he wants. You got Kuros Kassadin, you got a package being delivered towards him, and he's now trying to win this trade, even though Songwon is making his way up. But yeah, I mean, Spirit's Elise has been great. Marin's always been a fantastic Renekton, but it just feels like the composition, the way it was fleshed out in the draft, was what Afreeca have changed with the surprise Galio support that sort of came in towards the very end. It's like just utilizing where they're strong, but in a different way.
And the LPL adaptations were likely to come in after LPL did well. I think we'll see much more Cogmore this week and the next after the inspiration that teams like WE showed. But the other LPL influence was the increased priority on Jarvan top, which had kind of fallen away in Korea, you'll remember, Atlas, after being red hot in the first few weeks. And we're trying to see why, because if you get into these suffocating positions with a Jarvan, the Jarvan helping meme applies to even a team fight here, because they're so far behind in gold that Jarvan can't lane in the side lane safely or engage a team fight. So he's really pretty useless, and it's one of the reasons we saw Jarvan fall out, is there were increasingly more and more matchups that did well into him, including the Renekton that was already one of the premier picks, and Jarvan's inability to do anything at all this game is one of the biggest problems for Rox Tigers.
Yep, that's the Flame Horizon, 7 CS away for Marin, who is so far as a full Randuin's Omen ahead.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the Tristana or the Corki at this point.
No, didn't even care about the turret there you saw. He was just happily tanking that one up. Meek just got all of that health back as Lava's just going for a positive trade, but Afreeca Freecs are going to be right there to help Kuro out. Now Marin jumps his way back in, doesn't care about being knocked up. He'll just happily clear out that minion wave once again and put that pressure back on. Afreeca Freecs controlling this river 23 minutes into the game, and the Baron is most certainly under their control at this point.
2-level advantage, 90 CS plus and a Cull cash-in is the Renekton's advantage over the Jarvan. Just waiting on the Baron start that seems almost inevitable at this point. Spot vision only available from Tristana. One blue trinket available is really the only way the Rox Tigers have to check the Baron. Rek'Sai can walk up as well.
And they've got a nice comp as far as turning if they do get towards that Baron pit as well. Kramer happy to stand there and throw out his feathers and make sure that Rox have to be very careful making their way in. Scrying Orb comes in, but the Afreeca Freecs are not going to be deterred as the teleport's coming in from Linderung. Yeah, gets there just before that one times out. Kuro turns up, and that's a lot of damage on Linderung. He is so incredibly underfarmed and underleveled. Yeah, Marin is going to make his way in. He's looking for it out the back here as Songyun's going to push him away, but the grand entrance, perfect placement, and Marin is going to be the one that grabs that kill. There was even a Feather Storm there just for good measure on Kramer's behalf. They got one pick, and I have a feeling they're going to go back to the Baron, take that one out, and start wreaking havoc in the base. And
I have to say thank you to OGN for pulling out, because we got to see the full value of what 5 minutes or 10 minutes of stymieing of vision and getting to put down wards means. There were no good options for the Rox Tigers. They were going to collapse in one way or the other. They want to deal with Song 1. Baron at 3,000.
Yep, they're just holding onto it here as well as Tucson wants to try and get him out of the way. Kramer turning onto Key is, yeah, okay, you're definitely dead. The Baron's going to fall down as well, and Afreeca played that about as well as you could in that situation.
Yeah, that's what we call a perfect Baron setup, the sort of thing Everate was not able to do in recent weeks. All they need to do now is enter the side lanes. They still have teleport up on Kuro, Marin bringing in a massive minion wave in top. Afreeca Freecs have come out to play, and Rox Tigers, the team that dethroned KT just before we went to the Rift Rivals break, has no answer to them in Game 1.
And this is just looking like a new and improved Afreeca as well. I feel like that week off really has done some good things here for the team. And we know their coaching stuff. We know that they're very good and understand their players, things like this. And Afreeca look to have capitalized on it for the last little bit of time. As there's the pick. Songyun in trouble. That is going to be the shield coming out, so Key's going to keep him alive.
And that was Songyun disrespecting. You might be like, but he was just killing the, killing the walls. But access to walls is not something Rox has. So early in the game, once the Galio came mid, the safe objectives to pick up were only really minions under turrets, and now with Baron buff, the threat of turret dives, there's really little options for Rox to pick up farm, and they're just losing objectives everywhere. They're hemorrhaging them.
Yep, all over the place. Minion waves pushing towards the top lane. In a turret as well, as this inhibitor turret's just going down to half health, and there's not a lot that Rox is able to do about it even after the Afreeca Freecs back away. Marin heads back towards top. So we'll be able to Tiamat and swipe that one away. So now Kuro's going to turn up here. New Sheen at the ready, doing a fair bit of damage here as he rift walks his way out after a decent trade against Lava as well, who doesn't have a lot of mana. Just feels like resources are something that the Rox Tigers do not have as they lose the inhibitor turret. Marin's going to jump his way out, flashes. Explosive shot's going to go off, but I have a feeling he's going to be okay. He's got enough of the old armor to help him not take any damage from that particular button.
Must be time for a second inhibitor. If he can just walk up, nothing Rox can do.
Yep, casually wander towards it. As a support Galio, he's pretty tanky as the old Tucson. As the heroic entrance, Kuro's going to get himself out. Oh, explosive shots there, but he's still going to survive. Now they're going for the fight. Kramer throws. Oh yeah, Featherstorm was massive. Good roots came down as well. As look at the AoE. It's coming out, and Kramer is untouched. Trying to pick up the root caller kills as he flashes his way in. Songyun's going to fall down, but there's the follow-up kill. And Kuro's just looking for the clean-up. Key should fall down after this Riftwalk as he's looking for the Netherblade. There it is. Picks up the kill. There's only 2 more alive in Lava. Oh god, this is definitely like a horror movie, Papa Smithy. I don't want to be watching this. I'm my little toboggan, but that's a crocodile, and this is going to be a real struggle. Okay, cue the Benny Hill music.
Yeah, the Phage procs are actually being the true winner here. Actually cancelled an auto, that was awkward. Marin gets the Ruthless Predator, here we go.
Yeah, see you later. Kolomeek's going to clear that one up, and meanwhile, we've got Kuro just in the base, taking down Nexus turrets. He's going to be able to get the first one, but I think that Songwon will be able to deter him from getting further in. As the Afreeca Freecs have the base in shambles, they're 14,000 gold up, and now the Rox Tigers need to go full Samsung in order to come back into this one.
And it feels like ESPN kind of had the advanced footage of this particularly scripted game here, Atlas, because they called them the 5th best team in the world, and situationally, Afreeca Freecs have been the best team in the world. They've already got
if you only watch game 1, they definitely are. They're probably the best team in the world.
They already have 2 perfect games in summer season, so you can understand where the optimism comes. The lineup is also strong, but how often do they gel in such a clean fashion? The draft working for them, the play around their advantages has been perfect as well. This is about the best you could ask from the Afreeca Freecs, and that includes a season where they have those multiple perfect games.
Stunning to watch so far. Of course, you don't really take any bets until game number 2, I personally feel, when it comes to the Afreeca Freecs, but this game has been phenomenal and a lot more controlled than a lot of their victories. Sometimes Afreeca Freecs like to win with just downright aggression from minute 1 and snowball it that way, but this has been pretty methodical taking down of the Rocks Tigers so far.
Yeah, the macro here has been kind of the big differentiator. As we said, the draft does echo what Everate was doing yesterday, but the play style and the ability to push advantage is something that these lesser teams just should watch. You should learn from a game like this, because excellent macro from Afreeca.
Yeah, heroic entrance actually used as well as the Featherstorm, so big cooldown's now gone. As that's the last Nexus turret going down, as Baron's going to come in. And yeah, there's a lot of people here around this Nexus, and it should actually fall down as Kramer. He's going to turn up. Kuro doesn't want to die. He's got a big shield, and that's going to be that. Afreeca. Marin grabs a double kill, and they finish off the Nexus for game 1. Statement game straight out of the gate after Rift Rival.
And a statement against a Rocks Tigers team that it was on a 3-match win streak. Afreeca Freecs comes out, blows them open in the draft with the creative flexing of the Galio, blows them open in the game with the perfect capitalization on the game plan, break a turret, get the Renekton ahead in a counter matchup, rotate around the Cassid and the Galio mid lane. His ability to have a true global. They did everything perfectly, it followed the script, and Rocks Tigers, they look frustrated, but they had almost no control over what happened after about minute 5.
Yeah, and we had so many questions about the draft just before this game. We're like, there's so many picks that are going to be so key against especially the bottom lane. We saw 5 of the first 6 bans aimed at that bottom side of the map, and it just shows that if that happens, the things like the Elise for Spirit get through, the Galio gets through, which is so many mind games by the sounds of things for Afreeca Freecs, working out fantastically well. You get a free Renekton. It's just, the Afreeca Freecs looked like they had a draft that they would have put together with no bans at all, but it's a result of having this really focused draft because these bottom lanes have been stepping up.
It's definitely a color caster's warm fuzzies, Atlas. I just want to sit back and clap. You know, I'm like, wow. You drafted smartly, you played smartly, you made no big errors, you profited the most, everyone knew the game plan. Afreeca Freecs, they can do this from time to time. It's why we would love to see them actually move forward in the gauntlet. We still haven't seen this team in a best of 5. I'm excited to see it if we can this season.
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to as well, Papa Smithy. But it's not to say that the Rocks Tigers didn't have a good draft as well. I mean, we understand the idea behind what they were putting together. Of course, the Corki priority is something that has been moving up further and further. But understanding that the Cassidon was a good option into it, things like that, getting these winning lanes via surprise, something that certainly worked out for the Afreeca Freecs. But now,